You ready to talk about some music? I got one ready for you. Let's talk about this record right here. Released in 1981, Iggy Pop, Party. Do you know Party? Do you like Party? Do you like to party? Let's talk a little bit about this. This is kind of Iggy's weird period. And I have to say, this has, I think, could be my favorite Iggy Pop song of all time is on here. If it's not my favorite, it's definitely within the top three. But we'll get to that in a minute. Let me just clarify something, what made me want to talk about this record. One of the cool things about working in a record shop, and all you guys out there who do or who used to, you'll totally get what I'm about to say. And that is the stories you hear. Now, part of that is rock and roll lore, could be made up, could be complete nonsense, but some of the stories are true. And no matter how crazy and fantastic they sound, if you have an eyewitness there who saw it, or what went down in a studio, or whatnot, what happened on tour, it's kind of crazy. And chances are you would never hear some of these stories if you're working in an office or wherever. But thankfully, being in the record shop, I get people passing through all the time, producers, artists, whatever, and I get to hear some pretty incredible stories. And one of such stories was about this. And the guy who told me the story, you, if you're watching, you know who you are. Thanks for that story, by the way. Hope you don't mind that I'm passing it on. But he seemed legit. And as I was reading about this era of Iggy in the early 80s, I read other stories that were pretty far out and crazy that kind of made me believe the story I was told about Iggy and this album was true. Let's get into it, and you're going to learn a little bit about one of these fantastic tales and a little bit about Iggy Pop in this era. This was Iggy Pop Party, 1981. It was actually his fifth album. He had done his other two, The Idiot and Lust for Life, on RCA. Then he started a run on Arista Records. He had done New Values was the first one, then Soldier, then this. Now, Arista had been like, all right, Ig, we need a hit. We need it to be big. We need you to be big. Otherwise, so he had had moderate success with New Values. Soldier is a pretty lame record, actually, if you think about it. There's a few good tracks on there. I think Glenn Matlock is on that record or whatever, some of the Pistols. But anyway, it came time to have a hit. And Iggy knew basically his butt was on the line and he had to have a hit. How am I going to have a hit? Obviously, he was thinking maybe I can't do it on my own, or maybe Iggy felt maybe people don't like the Iggy version of a hit, even though he may love it, so I need someone else to help me with this. Now, part of the plan was Iggy drafted in Yvonne Krall, and Yvonne Krall was a guitar player for Patti Smith for a while, and he played with some other groups. And him and Iggy, I think, had played on the previous tour or whatnot. But anyway, he pulled Yvonne into the studio to help with this and to help write stuff. Yvonne had some friends who were the Uptown Horns, so that was an added benefit. Yvonne brought the Uptown Horns into the picture. It's not the first album that Iggy used that had horns, but it is a pretty prominent feature on this album. So anyway, there were two bonuses going for Iggy here. He had Yvonne Krall and he had the Uptown Horns. Did he have any hits? I don't know. One particular song on here, Iggy wrote himself for Mick Ronson in hopes that Mick Ronson would record it and have a hit. By the way, that song was Eggs on Plate. Those of you who know this album, it's kind of hard to believe if Mick Ronson would sing Eggs on Plate. I don't know. It's a silly song. I kind of like it. Would Mick Ronson have done it and done anything with it? Doubtfully. Those of you who don't know this record and that song in particular, look it up, take a listen, Eggs on Plate, see what you think if Mick Ronson would have done a good job. Anyway, let's get back to the story, which helps make this album so funny in a way, if you want to say, or amusing, we should say. Iggy was like, I have to have a hit. How am I going to have a hit? How am I going to have a hit? He thought of a producer, Tommy Boyce. Now, Tommy Boyce was one half of Boyce and Hart. Who is Boyce and Hart? If you look back on your old Monkees records, for example, they were the hit writers, or wrote some of the hits for the Monkees. So Boyce and Hart, as a songwriting team, they knew what they were doing. And Tommy Boyce could write a hit, and he knew how to produce. So as one part of the rock and roll legend goes, and this is verified out there, actually Tommy Boyce actually verified it in an interview, that Iggy came to him and pleaded, Tommy, please, I need a hit. Will you produce my new record? And if you don't, I'm going to kill myself, because that's where I'm at. It's going to end if you don't help me have a hit with this. So Tommy was like, hey, Iggy, I don't want you to kill yourself. Let's work together. Let's make something happen here. So the ball is rolling. We're going to have a hit. We're going to make Arista happy, and Iggy is set for superstardom. Well, thing is, Tommy Boyce didn't produce the whole album. Let me tell you a quick story about Tommy Boyce, which was really interesting. Remember, he wrote hits for the Monkees, Last Train to Clarksville, whatever, I think it is. But it's kind of funny, something that really got the ball rolling for Tommy Boyce was his dad went to him in 1959 and basically dared the little Tommy Boyce, he was a teenager back then, he said, I dare you to write a hit song for Fats Domino. This is 1959. You know what? Tommy Boyce sat down, wrote a song called Be My Guest. And after some trial and error, he actually got it in the hands. I believe he put it in Fats's hands. A few days later, Fats wrote him back, or someone from his entourage got in touch, and he said he was going to record it. And guess what? It became a hit. So anyway, Tommy Boyce had the stuff to make a hit. So Iggy is relying on this. However, Tommy only ended up producing 3 of the songs on this. The rest were, how many songs are on here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So the other 7 songs were produced by Tom Panunzio, whatever. Anyway, as luck would have it, the 3 tracks that Boyce produced were the last 3 songs on the album. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Of those songs, 2 of them were covers, 1 was an original. 1 video was made for this album, and it just so happens to be the 1 original song that Tommy Boyce recorded, which was Bang Bang. David Bowie, as did Bowie in the 80s, would end up putting that song back out, I think on the Never Let Me Down album. Bowie also redid China Girl on whatever that was, Modern Love, whatever. You know what I'm talking about. Anyway, last 3 songs on the album were all done by Tommy Boyce. These were supposed to be the hits. The last 3 songs were Bang Bang, Sea of Love, Time Won't Let Me. Sea of Love, Time Won't Let Me were cover songs. Now, everything was hinged on these songs that Boyce had done. Iggy said he felt pretty good about Bang Bang, and it's a weird song. There's a lot of speculation about that. You listen to the lyrics, and you see what you think. Some people say it was about materialism. Some people say it was about a rape. Some people say it's about misogyny. I don't know. Ask Iggy and have him explain it. But, very weird video if you watch the video. Bang Bang was the only single and somewhat hit off this record, right? Sea of Love was a cover, as I said, and Time Won't Let Me. Time Won't Let Me just kind of got lost. But when Iggy did Sea of Love, supposedly, he goes to Tommy Boyce and he says, all right, I have to make this the song that's going to do it, that's going to make me a star, and it's got to have that je ne sais quoi to it. And so he goes, will you work with me on this, Tommy? And Tommy was like, yeah, okay, sure, Iggy, what do you want to do? And Iggy says, when we get the studio time and we go in that studio to lay down the tracks for Sea of Love, and if you know that song, it's a cover version. It's kind of a slow, romantic, come with me on the sea. Well, I'm sure you've heard it. Your parents have heard it, I promise you. Anyway, Iggy says, look, Tommy, we got to make this special. I have an idea. Tommy's like, let it go, Iggy. Come on, let's get this done. Iggy said, I want to record the song naked because I think I can really be emotive on that. And Tommy's like, yeah, I don't know, dude. That's a little weird. I've never been in the studio with someone naked before, as far as we know. But then Iggy took it one step further and said, not only do I want to be naked, Tommy, I want to be upside down naked. And more than that, I want to be stuck to a wall. I want to be duct taped to a wall, upside down naked, singing that song. Now we know that's not too far-fetched. It sounds crazy, but remember, Iggy's out of his head at this time on dope and speed, and we had heard about Lindsey Buckingham, who got into weird stuff, taping mics on the floor, doing push-ups into microphones. So I'm inclined to believe that Iggy did this. Now, my insider information says he got that straight from Tommy Boyce. He used to see Tommy Boyce on a regular basis. And Tommy Boyce said he was just could not believe what his eyes were seeing, that he actually nudged a guy in the studio or had a buddy say, you got to get this. And someone sketched some scenes of Iggy upside down, doing Sea of Love in the studio. Naked, taped to a wall. Is it true or not? I don't know. Makes for a great story. But the thing that convinces me that it is the other background info about Tommy Boyce, I was told, and how the guy who told me the story and him met. But also, I read, I believe it was Yvonne Krall had said when he was working with Iggy during this time, that Tommy Boyce and Iggy were so out of their heads with drugs, they were afraid Yvonne was going to get in the way of them scoring. So they lock Yvonne in the closet in the studio and leave him there while they go out and hunt for dope. So I'm inclined. If they can lock the guitar player in the closet to go look for dope, I believe Iggy can be upside down naked trying to record Sea of Love. Sadly, though, the songs that Tommy Boyce recorded closed out the album. They did not become the hits that were expected, and Arista Records dropped Iggy. That was the end of his career with Arista. But that's okay. He would resurface later, doing bigger and better than he did on Arista, as a matter of fact. Real quick, though, let's go over some of this. I told you my favorite, one of my top threes, if not my ultimate favorite Iggy song. So on side 2, first song on side 2, Pumpin' for Jill. Love that song, one of my all-time favorite Iggy songs. Side 1, Pleasure. It's okay. Side 2, the second song on side 1, Rock and Roll Party. Pretty funny song. Guess that's where the name comes from, Party. Check that out. Eggs on Plate. We mentioned that at the beginning. That was supposed to be for Mick Ronson. Mick Ronson, for those of you who aren't up to snuff, that was Bowie's guitar player during Spider's era. Sincerity, that's okay. Another song I happen to like that closes out side 1 because it relates to my hometown, Houston is Hot Tonight. Pretty good track, actually. Side 2, Pumpin' for Jill. Happy Man is okay. Bang Bang. That comes up. Then we have Sea of Love and the other cover song, Time Won't Let Me. The album was kind of a flop. It made it in the top 200. I think it got up to number 166. But it just didn't cut the mustard. And so, like I said, Iggy was, even though he went and pleaded with Tommy Boyce for a hit, he got somewhat of a hit, but it didn't make it high enough to get to keep Iggy in his record contract. One other weird note, these pictures, Iggy Pop Party, remember 1981, but if you're into other weird rock and roll coincidences or music trivia, and especially if you like Bowie, him and Iggy are linked together a lot. These pictures here that made the cover were taken 4 or 5 years earlier when Bowie and Iggy, I believe, went to Japan And this is Sukita, who did the Heroes and the Idiot album cover. These were taken in the same sessions that Iggy had done for the Idiot album and that Bowie had done at the same time for Heroes. And a weird thing, look at that picture. For the longest time, I thought that was Iggy buttoning his shirt. Take a close look. That's not. That's him, remember, in 1977 doing some weird hand gesture, just like Bowie doing and Iggy doing on The Idiot. Anyway, Iggy Pop, Party, 1981. Cost him his record deal with Arista Records, but that's okay because it has one of my favorite Iggy songs on here. And your piece that I'm letting you in on rock and roll lore, could be legend, insider secret. Iggy recorded Sea of Love naked. Did he? I don't know. Tommy Boyce is no longer with us. I think that's right. I hope I'm not making a mistake. And Iggy, you'll have to ask him for yourself. Iggy Pop, Party. That's one thing it is.